back. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
And welcome back. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Thanks for joining us. In studio today, we're talking about advocacy with Maria Howard, the CEO of the Alzheimer Society of British Columbia. Also sitting in is Lynn Jackson, who's just talked about her experiences of living with the diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia and how that's affected her life and some of the advocacy efforts that she's made worldwide and right here in British Columbia. So today's topic is raising our voices, who are the ones in this community that are pushing for change to meet the needs of many that are diagnosed with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Those people that are fighting for a more dementia-friendly community. So our next guest is actually one of those voices. We're going to meet Rebecca Morris. And Rebecca is the manager of advocacy and education in that department for the Alzheimer's Society of BC. Rebecca, it's wonderful to have you on the phone today.
Thank you for having me.
So can we start off with the question, what is advocacy? How do you describe that?
That's a great question. And really, advocacy refers to any actions we take to create change. In some cases, that advocacy is the things that we do for ourselves or somebody we're caring about, and that we refer to as self-advocacy. That can be things like advocating for an early diagnosis, advocating for certain medications, or advocating for a person to get the best quality care in long-term care. In terms of systemic advocacy, those are the things that we do to create big change, to really change the landscape, and usually that's done through our political efforts. At the Society, we really see our vision as moving towards a society that's more dementia-friendly. That's a society where people with dementia are included, they're respected, and they have access to the kinds of supports that they need to really live as well as possible. And advocacy is one way that we can work towards a more dementia-friendly society, and it's a really important part of working towards that more dementia-friendly society. And working towards that better world is going to take all of us. It's going to take the efforts of advocates like Lynn Jackson, but it's also going to take the perseverance and insight of decision makers. It's truly going to take a movement.
So, Rebecca, as the manager of advocacy and education for the Alzheimer's Society of BC, what does that mean? What do you do, and how do you manage advocacy?
Something that I like to remind people is that even small actions really add up to a powerful voice when we're all sharing a consistent message. So something that we do at the Alzheimer's Society of BC is we help people develop the skills that they need to share their own stories. We're all going to have different dementia issues that are important to us and that we really want to see addressed. And so we can give individuals the skills that they need to write a letter, speak up at a town hall, to have a meeting with an MLA, for example, or just to share with other people why dementia issues are important to them.
So with the BC election just around the corner, May 9th, you mentioned earlier about political efforts with your advocacy efforts. Can we talk a little bit about that and maybe why it's so important for people to connect with their elected representatives, their MLAs, to help advocate for dementia?
Of course. I think the most important thing to remember is that once the person is elected into the BC legislature, they're really going to become your voice in BC. So the more that we can do in the lead up to an election to let them know that dementia is something that matters to us, the better they're going to be situated to really bring that into legislature with them once they're elected. So speaking up about dementia issues, whether it's to your MLA or whether it's to the people who are close to you in your life, it really does reduce stigma associated with the disease. But it also spreads knowledge and information about what's needed because dementia is affecting more and more people in BC due to an aging population. And we know that this is something that if it hasn't affected us, there's a good likelihood that it will affect us in our personal life. So elections really are a great time to become politically engaged and to have that conversation with both your existing MLA and the candidates in your riding. It's an opportunity to show your courage. It's an opportunity to raise your voice and to really highlight those issues that are important to you. Because at this time, we know that people who are campaigning are really wanting to listen to what is important to their constituents. they really need to hear from you in order to serve your needs. I think that often we have this idea that, well, why would a politician, why would they want to hear from me? I'm just one person. I'm just, an average person. Why do they want to hear what I have to say? But really that's important for them in terms of how they're going to go forward and how they're going to really decide what's a priority for their political party and what kinds of issues are going to be important to them once they do get elected to the legislature.
It's a great point that Rebecca raises, and I think the other element to consider when we're thinking about political advocacy is that while dementia is a disease, it's a healthcare issue, it's not just about healthcare. So talking to all MLAs who may be in different portfolios in the legislature is really important. It's a transportation issue. It's a labor issue in terms of being an employee or being an employer. It's an issue with education in terms of different professions having actually information on how you support clients who may have dementia. It's not just a health issue. Yeah. It's an issue that touches many elements of our community.
That's a great point, Maria. And who would have ever thought that Alzheimer's disease would become political? But I think it's the basis of us having a conversation about Alzheimer's and other dementias, that if you don't speak up, you just sweep it under the carpet, nothing gets done.
Absolutely. And I think that we forget that many of the decision makers that we'll be talking to, or many of the people who are campaigning to be an MLA, a lot of people are going to have their own firsthand experiences with what it's like to support somebody who's living with dementia.
Lynn Jackson, do you have any experience of approaching your MLAs?
I have gone with the Alzheimer's Society, and speaking as a person diagnosed, you're not alone when you go. You can go with somebody from the society, and it helps immensely that the MLA can put a face and see a real person behind the diagnosis.
Very good point. So, Rebecca, what are some tips for people with dementia who would like to share their story with their local MLA or their electoral candidate?
I think the very first thing that I would remind people is that we always want to be respectful, that it's always important to respect the person that we're connecting with and to approach them as really an ally rather than an adversary. This is a person who can be somebody who helps you in your in the movement to build a more dementia-friendly BC. So we always want to be approaching people with that respect. The other thing that I like to remind people is that it's okay if it feels a little bit scary at first. Most of us aren't used to speaking up in this way. It's new to a lot of us. So it can be really helpful to break this down into manageable steps, including taking the time to find out who's running in your area. And you can find that out through the Elections BC website, or if you contact us at the Society through advocacy@alzheimerbc.org, we can help you find that out. And then the things that we can do that might feel manageable to us are going to vary depending on our experience with advocacy and how comfortable we are. But some people will choose to do things like write a letter to the electoral candidates in their community. They'll decide to attend a town hall and ask a question about dementia. They'll decide to use social media as one way to speak up about the dementia issues that matter to them, or perhaps they'll even schedule a meeting with their MLA. I remind people that every action is really significant and no action is too small.
So, Rebecca, how does the society support people with dementia and their caregivers and families in becoming advocates?
So we've developed a series of tip sheets to make speaking up about the issues that are important to you easier, and those are available on our website, and those can be really helpful in advance of the election. You can also download a copy of the Speaking Up About Dementia Simple Guide to Raising Your Voice guide, and that, again, breaks advocacy down into some simple steps that people can take. And, of course, you can contact us at advocacy@alzheimerbc.org.
Well, that's great. You've actually made it easy for a lot of people. Is there anything else you would like to say, Rebecca, something that's important you can leave us with today?
I think the thing that I would like to leave the listeners with is that to create a dementia-friendly society, we're all going to need to be courageous. And really speaking up about dementia through our advocacy efforts is just one way that we can really show our courage.
I think you've said it well in the fact that it's going to take all of us, whether we've had Alzheimer's or dementia personally affect us, we need a bigger voice.
Absolutely.
Thanks for raising your voice, Rebecca Morris, and thanks for being part of today's show.
Thank you for having me. This
is Boomer Life on CL 650, and we're only days away from the Investors Group Walk for Alzheimer's, an event that takes place in communities across the province. We're going to talk to two of the co-chairs of the event and find out what's shaping up in their plans for the walk that's happening up on the North Shore, something that you, as a listener, can actually help be a part of. That's all coming up next on Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.